Hey guys, it's Miss Talia. Today we're going to determine if the following triangles are congruent. Okay, so let's take a look at number 2. We figured out that the angles are congruent, the corresponding angles are congruent, and the corresponding sides are congruent. All 6 pieces of information match. Therefore, the 2 triangles are congruent. And when we write 2 triangles are congruent, we're going to right over here. So like for example, triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Okay, and in this case, order matters. So for example, when we're looking at triangle ABC, the way we were going to write DEF, whatever letter corresponds to A, we're going to write that first, which is D. So A corresponds to D, B corresponds to E, and C corresponds to F. So make sure when you are writing your congruency statement that order matters. Okay, reasoning. The corresponding sides and corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, great. Let's take a look at the next one. All right, so remember, in order to determine if the 2 triangles are congruent, all 3 corresponding angles have to be congruent, and all 3 corresponding sides have to be congruent. So let's take a look at corresponding angles. Okay, so I'm going to write it up here, so forgive me. Maybe you have some more room on your paper. So let's take a look at the angles. Angle B is congruent to which angle? Angle E. Do you see how this angle right here is red with 3 tick marks, matches with this angle right here, red with 3 tick marks, so they are congruent. Okay, angle F, angle C is congruent with angle F, and last but not least, angle A is congruent with angle D. So we have 3 congruent angles. Now we have to show our sides. Alright, so let's take a look. Segment BC is congruent to segment EF. And again, order matters. Remember, B is corresponding to E. So if we're going to write this BC, make sure to write it EF. Okay? So that's the first side. The second side, let's do AB. So segment AB is congruent to, let's take a look. It's the side with 2 tick marks. So over here, DE is the side with 2 tick marks. But we start off with A, so we have to start off with D in this case. So DE. And then our last side is the one with 3 tick marks, AC. Segment AC is congruent to segment DF. So far we have 3 congruent angles, 3 corresponding congruent angles, and 3 corresponding congruent sides. So are they congruent? Yes, they're congruent. And the way we're going to write that again is triangle, let's do ABC. ABC is congruent to triangle. Okay, since we start off with A, we have to start off with D because they correspond. B corresponds with E, and C corresponds with F. So triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. Reasoning, the corresponding sides and corresponding angles are congruent. Okay. Let's take a look at number 4. Oh, sorry guys. All right, so let's take a look at the sides. Let's list off the sides here. That's what's given to us. So in this case, 5, 5, and 5. And over here, it's 6.5, 6.5, and 5. Okay, so far we only have one side that's corresponding, which is right here, 5 and 5. The other two sides don't correspond, right? We know that 5 is not equal to 6.5. So, since right off the bat, since we need all three sides congruent, and they're not congruent, no. And the reason is that the corresponding sides are not congruent. Okay, if you need time to catch up with your writing, please pause the video and do so. Alright, so let's take a look at number 5. Do you see these 3 tick marks? Okay, so we can see that there's 3 congruent sides. Let's list the name of them. Okay, so let's look at sides. Alright, so let's start off with this triangle right here with the 1 tick mark. Segment BC is congruent to segment DC. That's given to us with the tick marks. We know that for a fact. Okay, let's look at the next one. Segment AC is congruent to segment EC. And last but not least, segment AB is congruent to segment, okay, we're going to write it as ED. Since we start off with A, and A has this red angle with 1 tick mark, we're going to have to start off with E. Okay, so segment AB is congruent to segment ED. Okay, so we have 3 sides congruent. Now we need 3 angles to be congruent, okay? Let's write those out, angles. So what's given to us? Angle A is congruent to angle E. That's given to us. Now, as you can see, we can definitely say that these 2 angles right here are congruent for sure, because we know that vertical angles are congruent. That's something that we know. Okay, so we can't call that angle C because there's 2 angles that share that vertex, right? Remember when we name angles? So in order to name this angle, we have to name it either ACB or BCA. So angle ACB is congruent to angle, since we start off with A, we have to start off with E. ECD, angle ECD. So we have 1 angle right there. The second angle we know because we know that vertical angles are congruent. Now let's take a look at the third angle, okay? Are these 2 angles congruent? Well, we don't know. We don't have enough information in this picture to tell us that these 2 angles are congruent. Another way you can think about it is, well, if 2 of the angles are given, angle A and angle E are congruent, and then these 2 vertical angles are congruent, okay, that would mean that the third angle has to be congruent because there's 180 degrees in a triangle, right? So let's call this let's use 3 tick marks. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so angle B and angle D have to be congruent. If we know 2 out of the 3 angles, we can figure out the third angle, right? So if 2 out of the 3 angles match for both triangles, then the third angle also has to match. So angle D is congruent to angle B. We have all 3 sides congruent, and we have all 3 corresponding angles congruent. So are the 2 triangles congruent? Yes. So triangle ABC is congruent with the corresponding triangle ECD. Okay, and the reasoning is that the corresponding sides and corresponding angles are congruent. All right, let's take a look at the next one. So as you can see, the 2 angles in each are given and they match, okay? Although the third angle is not given to us, we can figure out the third angle and they're going to have the same measurement. Remember, just like how we were looking at number 5, I said that you're given 2 out of the 3 angles. And if 2 of the angles match, then the third angle is also going to match, just like in number 6. So to figure out the third angle, you're going to need to do 180 minus 78 minus 42. And you get 60 degrees. Okay, so let's, to the side, let's find our 3 matching angles. So, whoops, angle A is congruent to angle D. They both measure 78 degrees. Angle B is congruent to angle E, and angle C is congruent to angle F. Okay, 3 congruent angles, sorry. Now let's look at sides. Feel free to write this anywhere on your packet. I know I'm writing it off to the side. The sides. So what's given to us? The 18s, right? So AB, segment AB, is congruent to segment DE, and the 15s are given to us. Segment AC is congruent to segment DF. The third side is not given to us. There's no way we would be able to figure out that third side. So since we're missing that one piece of information, we don't know if the 2 triangles are congruent. So in this case, there's not enough information. Okay, so